Okay, so this is what my house's water line is. House is a little bit older. They used to use this a lot, maybe in the late 60s, early 70s, possibly. Now it's primarily in irrigation, I think. It's called polypiping or polybutylene piping. It's a thin-walled, somewhat rigid, but flexible pipe. It used to come in large rolls. So I had a break and I needed to splice it. You can't, well, you might be able to find this somewhere, but I don't know where. I needed to splice it with something, so we used 1-inch PEX pipe, which you can buy at your local hardware store. But its diameter, even though they're both considered 1 inch, they're quite different, as you can see. So what we came up with, I could not find these at any of the local big box stores. I had to go to an actual plumbing supply place, but it's a barbed fitting, a double barbed fitting. My understanding is that the smaller side is considered a 1-inch fitting for PEX, and that the larger side is 1 1/4 inch. It measures out closer to 1 inch. However, I want to say they told me it was 1 1/4 inch. The best thing to do would be to go up there with a piece of your poly pipe and ask for a barb fitting that fits it and fits 1-inch PEX on the other side. Anyway, so what we did, I got this for the PEX pipe. I got this PEX crimping tool. I think it was the cheapest one they had. You put it over your pipe, put the crimp over your pipe, and it fits in the end of the tool. And you basically just squeeze down however many times you're supposed to until it's tight enough. That was simple, right? But I could not get a crimp tool that would handle crimps big enough to put over the poly pipe without paying $300 and something for a potentially one-time use deal. So I had to come up with something different there. And so what we ended up doing, you can see the barb fitting, it fits fairly snugly within the poly pipe. However, I put my hose clamp over it, tightened it down, and no matter what I did, no matter how tight I tightened, it would still drip when I turned the water back on. So there were a couple of things. We kind of went potentially overkill. I think the primary issue was I got my hose clamps from a local big box store, and you can only tighten them so far before they would slip. So we got some better quality hose clamps from an actual plumbing supply place that don't do that. And then we used the plumbing tape, the Teflon tape, whatever you want to call it, ran it around the barb fitting a few times, and then put some pipe dope on top of that. Then we put it in there. Then we used the good hose clamp, and that seemed to resolve the leak. So, a couple of simple, see, this is more or less what the PEX looks like with the barb fitting in it, except that's not a barb, that's threaded. This was the first attempt. I think this would work if I had the better hose clamps, but I didn't have those at the time, so I had to take this back off. But anyway, a couple of little simple tips, things that you realize quickly if you do it wrong. But just remember, put all of your tightening apparatuses, the crimp, the hose clamp, on the correct piece of pipe before you start connecting things. Again, just common sense, but we get in a hurry and we forget those things. But once you have them on there, taped, pipe doped, clamped down, slide the 1 inch into the PEX, crimp it down, turn your water back on. Hopefully you don't have a leak. Pretty simple. I just had a lot of trouble getting it to work until I got a good quality hose clamp. So I hope this helps someone.